Sapiens, the show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis. And today, for our season premiere, I'm giving you season premiere, Keith. We're talking to Keith Ferrazzi, author of Never Lead Alone, 10 Shifts from Leadership to Teamship. Now, Keith's been on the show before. He is an icon, and he is also an entrepreneur and global thought leader in when it comes to high-performing teams. He's also the chairman of Ferrazzi Greenlight and its Research Institute. He is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Who's Got Your Back, and bestsellers like Never Eat Alone, Leading Without Authority, and Competing in the New World of Work. He's a frequent contributor to Harvard Business Review, The Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, Forbes, Inc., Fortune, and other publications. And, most importantly, he's just a nice guy who, when I called him many years ago asking him to blurb my book, he said yes. So welcome to the show, Keith Ferrazzi.
Patrick, if it wasn't for these bright lights shining on me, I would be blushing.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's you kind of walk the walk, right? Because you talk about leadership and you talk about just being a better human being, and you live it. So I'm really excited to have you today on the show. We're going to talk about your new book. But before we do that, we're going to start the show, as I always do, with the same question. And I think we changed it since you last came here, so get ready for something spicy.
I'm ready for anything.
The question I have for you is this: tell me something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything.
I'm an introvert. Yeah.
Wait, I'm a little blown away by that. So yeah, unpack that.
Yeah, please. I thrived during the pandemic, going deep and wonky in research and having this as an interface. Look, when I was a kid, I realized that having been the child of a unemployed steel worker and a cleaning lady who busted their ass to make sure I had the best education possible and love in the house and deep support, there was no way that my family of origin was going to show me the ropes or the way. And they kept saying that to me as well. That's why they wanted me in private schools, right? That's why they wanted to work at the local country club where I'd meet all the rich people and understand their ways. And, it was when I realized as a young man that people were going to be the pathway to everything that I dreamed of with my father and mother for me, right? All the things we engineered, what young Keith was going to do someday, people were going to open those doors. And once I understood that, I began to engineer. What I didn't realize is the reason I was able to write a book, the leading book in the world about networking called Never Eat Alone. The reason I was able to write that book is I was not unconsciously competent. It wasn't natural to me. I engineered it all in my head. I was consciously competent. I sought process, practice, and tools to get better at doing something I was not innately capable of. And with that, I realized that it just became cruise control for me. And one of the things I learned today about leadership is that there are innately great leaders out there. And you were very generous in some comments that you threw my way about the natural nature of how I live my life. You know what? I'm more scarcity minded and fearful and insecure than I am a natural flow kind of leader. I have a beautiful new president of our company who's just a flow kind of leader, and he's just inspires me. That's not me, right? I make everybody and myself nervous because of my fear for going back into poverty again when I was a kid and what that felt like. And so I need to design practices. I need to design clear process that props me up and makes me exceptional. And our research institute looks at exceptional leaders and identifies the simplest, clearest practices that they use to make their teams crush it and be high performing. And that's what I write in my books, just like I did with Never Eat Alone. I'm doing today with Never Lead Alone, 20 years later after Never Eat Alone. 20 years later, that book's out. I'm writing the book on high-performing leaders with the same mindset of it's all about like eating like popcorn. New practices will change your life, change the culture of your team, change your trajectory. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Well, I'm not looking for anything specific, but I'll tell you, I love it resonates with me, and I'll tell you why. Because I think from the outside, and I am also Mr. Scarcity mindset. Like that is my battle in life. Literally, like if I, because I grew up, middle class family in Maine. Like, and I didn't even know the term till during the pandemic. I was talking to a woman who was a coach, and she was like, and I had not moved out of my apartment for years because I was like, I don't need anything nicer. And she was like, you have scarcity mindset. Like, and I went out and I actually moved because I got to a much better apartment and all these things. But and then what happens is you make it work, right? But I identified that trait in myself, and I think it's really helpful when people who you admire, who are doing things that you think are cool, and who look on the surface to have it all figured out when they're, and I'm not saying like maudlin, like, well, woe is me. There's none of that happening, but like you're just being honest about what your kind of like internal sort of algorithm is that you need to constantly be identifying and addressing so that you can succeed in the way that you do.
Yeah, Patrick, it's like, I was just with a team yesterday here in Los Angeles, big educational institution. And I said to everybody in the room, there's two questions I ask teams, because one of the chapters of my book is all about the shift from, into a true growth mindset. And there's two components of that. Look around this room, and are the people you're working with seekers? Are they the kind of people that every day show up wanting to be 30% better this year? Do they show up saying, I need to learn new hard skills. I need to learn better core competencies. I need to learn better soft skills. I just need to level up. Or is everybody on this team a seeker seeking to level up 30% constantly? And the average team on a scale of 0 to 5 is in the low 2s, high 1s on that, which basically means that at some level of executive leadership, most people look around and think they're good, right? Now, if you just look out of the world right now and see all the changes that are happening with AI, the volatility since the pandemic, the speed of change, there's nobody that should be thinking they're good. The most successful, smart, technologists are probably the ones most awakened to realize how little they know. Yeah. And so that's the first thing. And then the second question I ask a team is, okay, now are you each other's coaches? If you look around with the people you work with, are these the people that you're looking to get feedback from to level up? Or are you an insecure, right, defensive individual? Are they insecure defensive individuals? Are you surrounded by a group of people that's walking on eggshells instead of leaning in? And is it a mindset where people say, I won't challenge you? That would be throwing you under the bus. Whereas the mindset says, of course I'm going to challenge you. I would never let you fail. Right? So those simple ideas of diagnosing where are you in your growth trajectory, and are you willing to take it from everybody around you to level up? That is one chapter around growth, right? And there are practices to do that. But for me, all my life, I've realized that my dreams are too important to allow myself to sabotage them.
Yeah.
And the only way I can do that is by knowing that I got to level up always, and by knowing that the people around me are the people who will tell me how to get.
So I have this theory that's evolving that very much relates to what you've been talking about, and I want to share it with you. By the way, I've like thrown the entire plan for this interview out the window because I think, like, I feel like I'm gonna do it's like I'm going to church right now, and you're gonna you're gonna teach me.
Amen.
So I have this theory, and it's a very negative theory, and I'm not saying that I'm like become a pessimist, but it's more of a realism thing around, which is that because of the last 7-8 years, America and the world have changed. We've had the pandemic. We've had a lot of divisive polarization. We've had the rise of like extraordinarily wealthy people who we lionize, but aren't necessarily folks that like are, some of the values that they espouse, I don't think are very good for our society. And so the feeling I've been getting is that the world has become a little bit more selfish and a little bit more self-interested, a little less social, a little bit more unidimensional, and the connective tissue among our society, among ourselves, is fraying. And so to survive in that kind of society, the temptation is to be deeply self-interested and not be a team player.
Right.
And you are here on the front lines of the team movement and teaching us how to be better at that. And so I would just like, to me, I'm kind of, I guess, diagnosing the problem that I see.
It's
And I
not a
wanna
new
start
problem,
there.
though.
Yeah.
And Patrick, this is a problem.
Tell me what it is.
Well, first of all, that book was written many years ago, decades ago. It was called Bowling Alone.
Yes.
And the book basically showed that our world degrading in terms of its connectedness.
Yeah.
And our clubs don't have the same power. Our church groups have dissipated. Men's prayer breakfasts don't exist like they used to. Certainly in certain isolated pockets they do. But as a society, we've lost our institutional connectedness. Result, people are, and by the way, we're a tribal species. So we're ending up as tribes of one, defensive and worried about ourselves as individuals. And so what you've said, check the box. Everybody, all the sociologists, behavioral science agree to it. Now the question is, what do you do with it? Right? Yeah. I see it as a huge opportunity because here's the point. Every human that is listening to this longs to be a part of a tribe that won't let them fail, longs to be a part of a group of individuals that will elevate each other, push. I created a word for it. We all long to be in relationships that are co-elevating.
Yeah.
Pushing each other higher. Where, Patrick, you and I, you have a dream. You've started a new coaching firm. I'm in the process of re-engineering our coaching firm with a beautiful, amazing, new, talented president leading the charge. Let's say you and I commit to co-elevating. Let's become each other's coaches. Let's check in on each other on a monthly basis. In fact, I would love it if you, whoever is your president of the business you've created, if it's you or whomever, I would love for you to be in partnership with my new president, Gavin. And the reason is because the two of you go create something extraordinary for yourselves, but interdependently. And by the way, you don't work for each other. You don't pay each other. I probably can't afford to put you on my payroll. You can't afford to put me on your payroll, but we can be on each other's team. And so as everybody listening, you need to find your tribe. So ideally, you find your tribe by starting with what your goal is. And this is what I teach. I was just on the phone to one of the most, iconic technology company CEOs moments before I was on with Patrick. And he was describing his strategy and plan to reinvent the company and radically re-engineer and double the market cap. I'm not going to say the exact market cap of this company, but it's in the hundreds of millions.
It's like a country.
It's like a country,
probably, yeah. Right?
Yeah. Because I had mentioned to you who it was.
Yeah.
And this individual is doubling the market cap for the company. And the problem is that the people working for him, they don't think as broadly enough about who their team is. So the person running hardware, the person running software, the person running et cetera, they're not thinking about who their team is. They're thinking about who their org chart is and who they control. That's the worst mindset associated with abundance and breaking through to 10x levels of performance. Just like I said to you and Gavin, or your president and Gavin, should be teammates, engineering their companies together. That has nothing to do with an org chart. It has to do with a social contract or a commitment to a combined set of goals and pushing each other to get there. So everybody listening, pick one dream or goal you have. President of the United States, CEO of a swashbuckling unicorn startup that's venture backed, private, whatever it is your business goal or objective or personal, whatever it is. And then ask yourself, who's my team? Who's my team? And your team are the individual you will co-create with strategically, and the individuals that will hold you accountable to the commitments you make, and the individuals who will be your coaches. But I just gave you 3 chapters of the book. The book is intended to be your roadmap for adopting practices with a set of people that won't let each other fail. Now, that's a lot of words, but the bottom line is whatever goals you have, everyone, you need to form a team. And then you need to create a social contract among that team that is different than the average social contract that we have with people. The average social contract leaves us mediocre. It leaves us mediocre. It leaves us conflict avoidant and nice when we should be loving and butt kicking.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, go ahead.
No, I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about just my own lived experience. I used to be really shy about asking for help from people. Even though I'm the guy who wants to help everybody. Like I've got a million mentees and 0 mentors. And I woke up one day and I said, this is not a very good situation. And I started approaching people and saying like, will you be my mentor? And it's kind of a weird thing to say to people, frankly. It's very vulnerable.
I have some advice on that, but go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no. And so I did that to force myself. It was like kind of like, with the person's having the heart attack and you put the thing on their chest and you like shock them.
The defibrillator. Boom.
Yeah, I moved away from that because it's a little creepy. But I think what I love about this is that you are advising people to take an active front seat role in shaping the people around them to create collaborative, co-elevating relationships as a way to not have to do it all alone. So what is your advice? How do we do this?
Yeah, let me pick apart some of the stuff that you said in service of leveling up there. So first of all, I want you to ask yourself, because I know it was true of me, if you're a massive giver, but you never ask, there's an underlying level of insecurity that you're not good enough.
Yep.
Because you, like me, felt that the only way to be worthy was to disproportionately give.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that you're shoring up your self-esteem and know that you are worthy of asking a group of people around you that really love you and want to help you and have your back. That was a breakthrough with me, with my own family, where I realized I've got 6 boys, and we can go into that later. But when I realized that I could start, and they're all adults, that I could start asking for them to help me. I could stop, instead of like bullying to do their chores, right? Or like, as a father would, I could start to show my ability and tell them where I need support and help and invite them in to be my co-creators.
Yeah.
And so that's the second thing. I never would ask a person to be my mentor. That's like walking into a bar, seeing a beautiful human and walking up and say, will you me? That's a little ahead of the curve.
I'm a little freaky that way. I know. I get it.
Yeah, that's okay. But what I would do is I would ask for people's advice.
Yeah.
I would ask them for their advice, and then you go from advice to help. And then all of a sudden you wake, and at the same time, always give while you're asking for advice. Then at the same time, they love showing up with you. The advice they give is being used. You're being grateful. They feel productive. You're giving them advice. You're giving them generous leads and whatever. And the relationship they now have with you is full of mutual currency and a ripe, beautiful relationship. And it's what I call co-elevating. It's not lopsided. It's not a mentor. It's not a subordinate. My mentors get so much from me. And I'm constantly trying to find ways to be of service to them. I don't even need the word anymore. It's a co-elevating relationship. You should be aspiring for that mutuality in the relationship, no matter what it is. Now, a young person listening might think, well, how in the hell, what do I have to give? If I want Keith Ferrazzi as my mentor, how in the world would I do that? What does Keith need from me? Right? Well, go online and figure that out.
Yeah.
Like, you go online and audit my social media, you would quickly have 6 things that in your visibility you could do that could advance something I'm trying to do. Now you can be generous. That I care about foster care. So look at this that I do in my foundation and volunteer in some way. Right? I've got a new book launch. Reach out and say, hey, I'd like to figure out how to get 100 of your books into significant leaders in my area, into their hands.
Yep.
Would you sign 20 of them for me as a starting point? I'd even give you the books. If, I have to pay for them myself. People don't realize that about speakers. And once you sell your book to a publisher, you have to pay for the book.
You're your number one buyer of your damn book.
Totally true.
So ridiculous.
Right? Hopefully that's totally true. Hopefully other people are buying more numbers.
No, but like in terms of, unless you do like a bulk sale, but like I've got so many copies of my book. It's crazy.
You have to buy them. But anyway, my point is, I've just given you 3 ways to add currency to somebody that you thought might have been out of your line of sight to be in relationship with. Or you could say, you want to work hard to make sure that Keith Ferrazzi is a speaker at your company's annual leadership offsite. You work around trying to figure out how to get that person who books that speaker and put me on the radar. Guess what? When I show up, you make sure that I know that you were the person that made it happen, and ask me if I wanted to have dinner the night before, and I would say yes. Right? So it's like, just imagine leading with the kind of generosity that attracts attention. You can do that. And then you continue to work that relationship so that we become each other's partners. Now, when you're in a team, you're always doing that all the time.
Yeah.
If you're a team, and a team has nothing to do with org charts, team has to do with a group of people who have a shared set of missions, and you're trying to make each other successful, right? Like your coaching firm and my coaching firm could be teammates in the world of building a great coaching firm. Yeah. And, mine focuses on high-performing teams only. Yours may focus on executives. I don't know. What is the focus of your coaching firm?
Founders and, founding teams, leaders of venture-backed or private equity-backed companies or investors, because that's the world I've always lived in, right?
Yeah, so and that's great. And that's not typically a market for us. I mean, our market is high-performing teams of Fortune 500s.
Yeah.
So let's figure how that book can be impactful in your business.
Yeah.
And I'm also a venture partner at a company called Lightspeed. I don't know if Lightspeed VC.
Yeah, of course. They're amazing.
They're amazing. A bunch of amazing, open-hearted tech geeks who are just, and I coach their portfolio companies.
That's so cool.
But anyway, I'd love to meet with you and think about how we could team better in that space. Because I'm not building arms and legs in that space to coach.
Yeah.
So let's go crush that together. So
I
that's
love it. 2025 goals, everybody.
Let's do it. But listen, folks, this is the way the world gets made.
Yeah. Yeah.
It gets made with open-hearted people thinking about win-wins, trying to make others successful, and as a result, leveling up you and others together. And that's been my journey from, all the way to never lead alone, to realize that you lead with others and you lead with a different social contract. It's not delicate, it's butt kicking, it's highly accountable, but it's also loving because you refuse to let each other fail.
I feel like I want to just address the people listening right now, and I know who you are because you tell me about this. There's so many people out there who they're the connectors in the world, like, and they connect everybody, but they cry and they say, I'm connecting all these people, but I never see anything back for me. And we all know these people, and that is, it's a really nice skill, and it's very cool to be able to do that. But you oftentimes feel like you're not getting it back. And so for the people that are listening, Keith is giving you a really clear roadmap. And what's beautiful about your roadmap also, for the other thing, is that, we oftentimes, and I've been a big believer, like the people I learn from the most are the people who are the most different from me. It could be a 25-year-old, it could be a 95-year-old. Like, it's like the more I get outside of the little bubble that I live in terms of all of the things that you see, age and race and where I live, and also the more I do that, the more I learn and the more formative it is for my mindset. And so you are also giving us a way of building those kinds of relationships for power that then everybody wins. So this is really, I think, like, you've just Keith, like, you've kind of blown my mind today. Like, I knew your stuff, but like this feels like such a roadmap to make it through the next like 10 years or beyond, because it's so simple, but yet it's so needed. You know what I mean?
And look, and it comes, you and I have already acknowledged, I don't think we said it this way exactly, but we acknowledge that we're born from a scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a fight every day to live in abundance, like my friend Peter Diamandis does and speaks to and writes to, etc. He's one of my best friends. And I think it's because of his influence in my life that I've constantly asked, how do I work differently? How do I behave differently? How do I approach differently from abundance?
Mm-hmm.
And what we're talking about here is leading through abundance. The relationship that you and I have just triggered could be really impactful for us.
Yep.
And it's going to require accountability. It's going to require follow-up, but it's the kind of thing that hopefully you all saw it happen in action, that it's available to all of us. But if we walk into a relationship thinking that people are trying to get something from us, or thinking we're not worthy enough to be in a relationship with somebody that feels superior to you, or it looks like they don't have shit going on where you do, right? Then you're really going to miss it. You're going to miss the opportunity to create greatness with greatness. Greatness is around all of you. And you've got to be willing to take the first steps. And frankly, the first step is service, but then you follow that up with a request for advice, a request for help. And that's the ladder. And it's like a DNA strand. The more you help, the more they open up. The more they open up, then the more you can ask for advice and then ask for help. And then the more you can give because they've opened up and you learn even more about them. And then you continue to strengthen the relationship both ways until both of you are working their asses off to elevate each other. I mean, I had Peter, God bless him. I was talking to him this morning, and he's doing this major CEO event, and Peter said to me, he's like, Peter, my goal at this event is to celebrate you. Your 20 years and the launch of this book, this is his event, right? And he's saying, I really want to think about how to celebrate you at this event. And and how did we get there? We got there since I've been busting my ass to be of service to him. He's always trying to be of service to me. It's just such a beautiful relationship, co-elevating, and I want this for you all in your marriages too, by the way. If you're in a relationship with your soulmate or with somebody that's supposed to be your soulmate on paper, but they're not co-elevating, go get that fixed. Every critical relationship of your life needs to be co-elevating. And that's last night at this dinner that I threw for this executive team of one of the more well-known educational institutions in the world. They all walked away saying, holy cow, what if I applied this in my marriage?
Yeah.
Like, what if I really had a marriage that was fully transparent and abundant and co-creative? What if I applied that in my marriage? What would that look like? What kind of life would I
you wake up every day with this mindset? Go try it, everybody. Like, so it's very interesting, Keith. Like, I feel like I have more to learn because life's a journey and we are always, but this has very much been kind of innate to me and I've worked on it, And so when you're talking about these things, I identify with it. And what I can tell you is I didn't used to be that way. I am very much that way now. And I see the difference. And just like you wake up in the morning and you're like, life feels embracing. And
so can I just change a little word?
Yeah.
Let's not talk about mindsets anymore.
Okay.
I know that everybody talks about mindset. It's all about mindset.
What are we going to say? Give it to me.
You don't think your way to a new way of acting.
Mm-hmm.
You act your way to a new way of thinking. When you wake up every morning, you're not going to wake up in a mindset of abundance or gratitude until every morning what I do is I have a practice. I say, okay, today, what are the 3 things right now that I am most grateful for? And none of those 3 things could ever be repeated any time in my life. So every day I've got to come up with 3 different things that I'm grateful for, right?
Strong.
And the second thing that I think about is, what are 3 things that are going to happen today, not in the future? What are 3 things that are going to happen today that I'm really looking forward to? Yeah. And it forces me to look through with anticipation. And so it's 3 things you're grateful for and 3 things that you look forward to. And that's a simple practice. It's a gratitude practice. It's an abundance practice.
Yep.
Practices change your mindset. If you're a person that shows up in scarcity, you're going to keep showing up in scarcity despite the fact that Patrick and Keith tell you should show up in abundance. It's irrelevant. You need to start practicing. Practices change mindsets. you do this practice long enough. My son, one of my boys, was going through a real crisis of spirit, and he gets panic attacks on things. And I introduced this practice to him, and every day I showed up and I texted him and made sure he did the practice.
Yeah.
Every day, because that's my responsibility in a co-elevating relationship, to continue to prod him. Right? Do you have somebody in your life that will wake up every day and text you to do that? And if you don't right now, that's okay. Give yourself the reminder, set an alarm.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, one of your practices
you can
is
have Alexa do it.
Yeah,
Alexa
exactly.
can do that for you.
Yeah, Alexa can do it. But at the same time, you need to start adopting practices that bring more people into your life, so that those people can then be co-elevating. Join a club that allows you to do it. Join a Facebook group that allows you to do it, right? This isn't about looking at social media as a place to observe other people. Start activating on social media where you find people who aren't so far out of your sphere, but you find people that you look at, you admire them, and start texting them. One of my sons, a young man named Jack Liang, you go on Instagram and check out Jack. Jack's doing incredible stuff. He was leading the Stop Asian Hate campaign with Andrew Yang.
Wow, that's amazing.
He's just an amazing young man. And he's the kind of guy that actually, I think, checks his own Instagrams, like me, my social media team does. So, somebody that checks, and now he's got a community of folks that he cares about and pumps up. And he does it all on social. You can start to find these people out in the world.
That's cool. I'm looking at Jack's page right now. He was in Bhutan. Well done. All right. So
I took him over there. I think I told you this. I'm coaching the country of Bhutan right now.
No way. I've been to Bhutan and I'm a fan. And that's the coolest.
I took my family over with me when we went. It was amazing.
Well, Sunil Gupta, I'm sure you know him in LA. He's been on the show before. He was involved in Bhutan as well. I have Bhutan FOMO because all my friends are doing things.
Come and join. Come and join. National Day is December 17th. It's today.
Right. Oh my
Today's
goodness.
National Day of Bhutan. I'm going to text the Prime Minister. Let's see.
That is so cool. Gosh. Keith, you brighten our doorstep. We're going to wrap in a minute, but I do want to ask you, we have a lightning round. We've introduced a lightning round since last you came, and I have 4 quick questions for you. You ready?
Yes, sir.
I love it. He's like texting the Prime Minister as we speak.
Now I'm going to text the King.
You should do. You should do. It's a big day. All right. So 4 questions. First one is this. Give me a favorite quote.
My favorite quote is one I just gave, which is, you don't think your way to a new way of acting, you act your way to a new way of thinking. Practices are everything.
Yeah, that's such a, thank you. Number 2, favorite use case for ChatGPT.
Taking the contrary opinion of something that you think you're certain on.
I like that. Very good. Number 3, a piece of advice you give to your younger self.
Trust your instincts. You're a good kid. Stop being so second guessing and insecure. The people that you're building those relationships with really do love you, and you're worth it.
Yeah. Number 4, what's your most important memory?
Sitting on my dad's shoulders, taking a hike on a Sunday.
Oh, that's so good. Keith, for folks that want to interact with all the good things you're doing, where should we send them?
Well, first of all, highly advise you go get my 20 years of insights in the new book, Never Lead Alone.
Yes, it is a beautiful book.
Thank you. If you haven't seen my iconic first book, Never Eat Alone, you could also start there. And then otherwise, just join me on keithferrazzi.com. We're doing lots of cool stuff. We've got a new course that we've launched called Beyond Connections that help coach people into more effective relationships in their life. And just follow us on social.
Excellent. Keith Ferrazzi. It's good stuff. And Jack Liang too, because I just checked it out and you're going to like it. All right, everybody. Keith Ferrazzi, author of Never Lead Alone, and just a generally amazing and delightful person to have on the show. Thank you so much for opening season 13
Woo!
for FOMO Sapiens.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right. Amazing.